Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
All right, it's 2 p.m. Central African time. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Nedbank Business Watch. After 2 chilly days, today brings a warm warmth to Mbabane. And, it's a perfect backdrop to deep dive into the world of business today, but also a perfect welcome back to my co-host, Lungelele, who's been away for a while. And she certainly did live with the warmth of the days because we've been experiencing quite the chilly days over the past 2 days, but here you are, welcoming us back. I mean, welcoming you back with some warmth, and I think outfit even speaks of that.
Yeah, thank you, Sfiso. Very good afternoon to our viewers. Thank you for tuning in to Nedbank Business Watch. You can watch us on our YouTube page. We are on at Eswatini TV on channel 286 on DSTV as well. Very good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Yeah, Lulu, it's going to be a very fascinating program today and a very insightful one, and I think that is always the premise with our business shows here at Eswatini TV. And certainly today, delving into a significant development that could reshape the way that African countries trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area. The Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, Wamgele Mene, who was here in Eswatini, recently announced that countries under the agreement may begin trading in their domestic currencies, which is quite the announcement, a move that could revolutionize cross-border trade on the continent. But the question then becomes, how feasible is this shift? What challenges lie ahead, and how might this impact the economies of African nations, especially here in Eswatini, lapha ekhaya Gangwane? We're going to unpack this complex topic with Sanele Sibiya, our economist, who will offer insights into the practicality as well as the potential impacts of trading in local currencies across borders. Stay with us.
Yeah, today on the Nedbank segment, we're focusing on foreign exchange. Nedbank's role as a bank from a foreign exchange perspective is to provide access to global markets to their clients. Buying and selling of goods and the provision of services is no longer bound by borders. Businesses and individuals now have access to global markets, and Nedbank's role is to assist their clients navigate the foreign exchange markets that comes with the trading with international partners. There are a lot of solutions that range from spot payments to hedging and trading solutions. Treasury Sales Manager at Nedbank, Tobaka Mete, will join us today and tell us about the benefits of importing goods and technical services with the assistance of a Nedbank. He will then later give us an overview of today's financial markets. For now, let's go straight to business news.
Three minutes after 2, thank you for staying with us. Let's get straight into our business news.
Next month, the Planning and Budgeting Committee will start budgeting on the UMSEBE Integrated Financial Management Information System by the Ministry of Finance. The system, according to the Minister, Honorable Neil Rakenbag, is digital and will ensure transparency and efficiency on government expenditure, which government developed with the assistance of Rwanda Corporation. This was revealed during the extraordinary steering committee meeting at Sibane Sami Hotel at Zuluni.
Let us, as we use the system and as we manage our limited public finance resources, be as transparent as light and shine light in all of our work for the greater good. Congratulations to the team for this first step in many that will culminate in a fully fledged system in the next year and a half. The UMSEBE project officially commenced in May of this year under my stewardship, and I'm pleased to report that despite facing some internal challenges, we have made significant strides. The implementing team from RCI has worked diligently and in alignment with our schedule. We are on track for the go live of Phase 1, Release 1 in October. This release will introduce the chart of accounts and the planning and budget modules, mainly targeting the planning and budget teams. Looking ahead, Phase 2 is set for April 2025 and will involve the whole of government, while Phase 3 will follow in April 2026 to complete all modules. The third and the fourth financial years will be for integration with other relevant systems to ensure the completeness of the PFM system cycle.
Head of the Rwandan Corporation, which was instrumental in the formulation of the system, Dr. Willie says they have worked with due diligence to come up with the system.
Indeed, it takes trust to be given such trust, to be given such noble responsibility. As Team Rwanda, we recommit to deliver within budget, quality, scope, and timeline. These are major critical components of a successful project. Like any journey, digital transformation journey at national level may face some challenges. However, Rwanda's tragic history makes us believe with strong conviction that there is no challenge on earth that is irresolvable. There is no risk that cannot be managed. IFMS project in Eswatini operationalizes the Pan-African belief, African solutions for African problems. There is no better way to highlight this, the significance of the above Pan-African belief, than this meeting.
Chairperson of the Ministry of Finance Portfolio Committee, Maui Kumalo, has applauded the Ministry for Finance for coming up with such a system.
The IFMS initiative paves the way for the much easier implementation and the overall operationalization of the Public Finance Management Act of 2017, without which we're just as good as driving on a narrow road that is inundated with heavy traffic, with hurdles and bottlenecks. However, today, we witness the launch of a superhighway in which traffic will move without hindrance, with all the necessary gadgets in place, the speed cameras, etc., placed along the highway for efficient, smooth sailing, accident-free traveling, safely reaching our destinations. That's how we see it.
The system, when in full motion, will contain 17 modules, 11 of which will be used by the Treasury Department. For Nedbank Business Watch, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
The Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology has thrown all its weight behind the implementation of the UMSEBE Integrated Financial Management Information System by the Ministry of Finance. Now, the Honourable Minister Savannah Mazia says strong and capable teams have been appointed under the ministry, which will ensure that the system, which is meant to ensure transparency in government spending, is implemented successfully. The minister was represented by the Honourable Minister for Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Jane Simelane. This was during the Extraordinary Steering Committee meeting at Simanesami Hotel, Ezulwini.
This project symbolizes the dawn of a new day of our public finance systems. I am confident that this forward-thinking approach and its successful implementation will elevate our financial practice to new heights of efficiency and integrity. The pivotal role of technology in realizing this vision cannot be overstated. UMSEBE's success hinges on our ability to harness cutting-edge technological solutions. The Ministry of ICT, through the Royal Science Technology Park, RSTP, stands fully committed to providing the requisite infrastructure and technical support to ensure that the project's objectives are not only met, but exceeded. I am pleased to report that the leadership of our RSTP has already designated a dedicated team of 5 ICT experts who will be deployed to the project management unit on a full-time basis. In addition, a supplementary team of 7 officers will be on standby to provide assistance as needed. This allocation of resources underscores our firm commitment to this initiative, which we regard as a national priority. Our team is prepared to address any technological gaps, modernize ICT infrastructure, and ensure that enabling environment is maintained for the successful execution of IFMIS. We recognize the urgency of this undertaking.
And that's it for our business news. It's 11 minutes after 2 p.m. Thank you for staying with us. This is Nedbank Business Watch.
We have Sanila Sibi, our economist, joining us virtually via a Zoom link to discuss how feasible it is to trade using our domestic currencies under the AFCFTA after the break. All right, welcome back. As the day heats up in Babane, so too does the conversation on the future of African trade. And today we're tackling a game-changing announcement from the AFCFTA Secretariat. Countries may soon begin trading in their domestic currencies. Now, what does this mean for cross-border trade? And more importantly, how will it reshape economies like ours in Eswatini? Helping us breaking it all down, Sanila Sbia joins us now via a Zoom link, ready to decode this monumental shift and its potential impact. Sanile, a very good afternoon to you. Let's jump right in. First question is the simple one. Why domestic currencies? Wamgele Mene highlighted the possibility of African countries trading in their domestic currencies under the FCFTA. What are the potential benefits of trading in domestic currencies rather than relying on foreign currencies like the US dollar or the euro?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ngumad, and good afternoon to the viewer at home. So when we are looking at trading in domestic currencies, what we are in essence saying is one wants to take away the foreign exchange rate volatility amongst major countries, amongst trading partners, where you find that the exchange rate has to be what it's called, one has to exchange the currency 3 times or 4 times because it has to then now come and work in Eswatini. But right now what we are saying is, if I'm buying from, let's say, a country like Malawi, I'm just going to pay in I think it's the kwacha, and then they pay me in Emalangeni, so we just exchange in that currency. So in a way, we are no longer relying on what one would call a vehicle currencies, but we are taking advantage of our own currencies and not having to go through an international vehicle currency. So what that does is it takes away a lot of that volatility, and it becomes a trade that is now more or less influenced by conditions within those 2 countries in terms of how much the exchange rate is going to be between those 2 countries. And this is not something that's going to be happening for the first time. We know for a fact that, for example, because of the peg 1-to-1 between South Africa and Eswatini. All our trade has always been in the rand. But what we are saying going to see happen now is when you're moving into other countries such as, let's say, Zimbabwe, you're moving into Zambia, you're moving into Kenya. When you're now selling to those countries, you're not going to want to sell that in dollars. But what we are saying is we will agree and look at the value and then exchange in terms of the two currencies. So that is also going to have market impacts in terms of the strength of the exchange rates of African currencies, because there is now going to be an increased demand, that is going to be brewed intra-regionally to ensure that when we're now trading, we're trading utilizing each other's currencies, and that makes our currencies a bit stronger in the international market. So it does come with that exchange rate benefit as well. And also at the same time, it does eliminate quite a number of the exchange rate hurdles that one has to deal with, and makes pricing easier, Mr. Ngumalo. Pricing becomes relatively easier because I'm now talking of a commodity that's priced in rands or that's priced in the Kenyan shilling. We don't have to convert to the dollar and then we sell you something in the dollar, but we are just selling it to you in the way that it's been priced. Now that's going to make trade relatively easier amongst African countries.
Yeah, 54 African Union member states have signed the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. That speaks to ratification. And I'm just, looking at where our economy stands, trying to find out how good we are placed on this footing here. We are right now ranked number 9 in terms of strong currencies in Africa. Of course, with South Africa, you did mention that we are at par. Does that speak to a good opportunity for Eswatini when it comes to trade? I mean, 54 countries, and we're already in the top 10.
When you are looking in terms of the AfCFTA in itself, what we are seeing there is, Eswatini now will have access to this broader market, these 54 countries.
All right, it looks like we have lost Sanele, but he's back. Okay, good enough. Sanele, I'm sorry, Sanele, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I will ask, and I love asking you this, that you start from the beginning on answering this very question.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ngumalo. So what we are seeing there is, number one, what this AfCFTA presents is the fact that we have access to 54 other countries with which you can trade under a free trade area arrangement. So that in itself speaks volumes. That's a market of around 1.2 billion people, making in the upwards of $50 billion a year, I think, per annum. So that's huge. So that's number one. And the fact that we are coming in strong makes it relatively easier for us to adapt and be able to trade effectively amongst the major countries. But then now when you are looking at it in terms of currency strength, the fact that our currency is relatively stronger comparatively, that makes our imports relatively is cheaper, but our exports are going to be relatively expensive going into the region. So that might be one of those factors that one has to consider. And then over and above, but what we need to find there is what one would call a comparative advantage or a competitive advantage, to say how now then do we compete when we are coming in at a higher exchange rate that makes our commodities relatively expensive in the markets from which we'll be sending our commodities. But then we can differentiate our commodities and, talk of issues of quality, talk of issues of standards, making sure that our commodities are able to meet the phytosanitary standards. And I know Eswatini is one of those countries that are big on ISO certification, that is the International Standards Organization's certification. So I do believe that if we take it on that footing and ensure that we invest on them, enabling infrastructure to make sure that our commodities will not meet these other non-trade barriers, and we are able to go into a number of these markets. Because even though we are still talking of a free trade area, but there are still going to be non-trade barriers such as your standards, the certifications that are required to go with it. So I think we need to build on that competitive advantage. But the currency standpoint does put us at a weakened position in terms of our exports. going to be expensive, but in terms of importing, we do have that leeway now to diversify our imports to alternative sources that are going to be relatively cheaper compared to our current import composition of about over 60% or 80% coming from South Africa. So now that gives us a bit of scope to diversify and see what else we can source from within the region and from within the continent to diversify our consumption options as a country.
Okay, so I'm getting the sense that the countries with, say, maybe the weakest currencies, so to speak, benefit in terms of export the most.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very, very
you
tricky.
get to export a lot because relatively, if your currency is weaker, that means, the people to whom you are exporting, they need relatively small amounts of their own currency to get your commodities.
All right, now, good enough. But what systems then need to be in place for this to work efficiently?
I think what we need, based on observation, most of our banking systems domestically was really focused on regional, more especially that SACCO. But we're already seeing that the central bank is now shifting towards, this high value payments through the SADC payment system, the SADC switch payment system. So that in itself gets us very close to this goal where we would now be able to manage and shift quite a number of the monies, even though that be international, and that's diversification within our banking system. I think it came at the right time where we are now going to be able to just exchange with other countries. So that was quite critical. We needed to ensure that it's relatively easy. And I do believe that when we move into the SADC payment system, it's something that people would be able to do from the comfort of their homes and be able to send payments abroad and across. And this process really needs to be fast, Mr. Ngumalo, considering that we are going to be dealing with quite a number of volatile currencies in the region. So that now becomes quite an issue because it has to be exchanged to the domestic currency, and you don't want, by the time you receive the money, to find that the exchange rate is now actually on the negative, so you're now losing. So that change in the payment system is one of the critical enablers that is going to allow us as a country to take advantage of this FCTA payment arrangement.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me when Mr. Wamgela was highlighting this development was the challenges to implementation. I really wondered what those could look like, and I immediately thought we will have to have Sanela on the program to maybe give us some insight into what he foresees as major challenges in implementing cross-border trade using domestic currencies. Are there specific economic or say maybe political hurdles that could slow this transition?
So economically, Mr. Ngumalo, is the integration of the payment system. What we need, Africa needs a very strong payment system to make sure that the payments can actually be made internationally with efficient ease. So what we are seeing now is we are moving towards a SADC payment system, but you are bringing in quite a number of different countries into the AfCFTA, where you are going to have your ECOWAS coming into play, the East African Union coming into play, the MENA countries in North Africa coming into play, and then you're going to have Southern Africa, the SADC region. So what that means is right now we need to find a way of making sure that we are able to interface for different payment systems to make sure that the payments can go through with relative ease, right? And then there's issues of hyperinflation. For example, if you want to trade with a country like Zimbabwe, are you going to trade using the bond or are you going to trade using the dollar? Because most people in Zimbabwe are using the dollar. So there are those issues to consider as well, and really just try to harmonize those across the region. And also issues of determination of the exchange rate. Africa is a relatively unstable continent, both politically and economically. Things can shift overnight, and then you would have actually accepted a payment, and then by the time it comes, dynamics have changed, the politics have changed, the interest rate, the exchange rate has plummeted. So quite a number of those dynamics have to be taken into consideration. Mr. Ngcola. And I would think at best you would find that ideally you would find that we are probably going to move into an African vehicle currency because of those socio-political and geopolitical within the region, in political, those instabilities within the region. So you might find we are moving more towards an African type of vehicle currency because of all of those issues that need to be balanced up to make sure that trade does not end up costing us a lot when we find those exchange rate fluctuations happening overnight. Certain other countries, inflation, we are still dealing with a very high rates of inflation in quite a number of countries, inflation in the double digits. So that in a way also affects the value of the currency. So that's one of the things that we need to think strongly around and ensure that we are able to address those and get that harmonization of monetary policy across the region to ensure that we take away those instabilities that might actually affect the exchange rate. And we need to, silence the guns in Africa to make sure that, trade can actually happen and it will not affect the trade, will not affect the flow of goods and services and the outflow of money from one country to the next, Mr. Lim.
Absolutely. You have hinted on the imperative of the central banks and commercial banks, just financial institutions really, how crucial they will be in facilitating and managing this shift. I want you to chime in more into that, the role that they can play in ensuring smooth transactions across borders, and maybe what we look like as Eswatini, because you have praised the central bank, and certainly you have hinted on praising on some of our commercial banks as well in terms of how they operate.
Yeah, I think based on from the local front, Mr. Ngumalo, one has to acknowledge that there's going to be a shift. And one thing that we've noted with that shift in terms of for international transfers, it was relatively easier for one to basically transfer money from their own bank account to any country in the region within the CMA. But we are seeing that change, and we are hoping that the banking platforms will as well will as well improve to actually take that into consideration. The fact that we're now with these international transfers, can I still be able to do it off of my computer? And I think that's going to be step one. If we are now going to be able to accept that shift and treat it as an international transfer, then that means we are already a step closer to ensuring that we are able to also send payments across the region and across the continent without having to leave one's computer, because it's going to be critical in terms of the efficiency of the payments, where I can just make a payment from a company to a company in Uganda without having to without having to find an intermediary through which to route those monies. So I think that's one of the things that we need to first understand as a country, and really we need to take stock and see where we are in terms of processing those international payments. But as far as we know, in terms of international payments, one would have to really just walk into the bank and sign an international forex type of transaction. But if we want the financial system to catalyze trade, we need to ensure that payments are made with relative ease, and we're already on that step. We're already on that trajectory. We just need to continue pushing the boundary and making sure that at least regional or international payments within the domestic front can actually within the African continent can be made with relative ease, Mr. Newman.
Well, Sanele, thank you so much for your invaluable insights on the show today. There was Sanele Sbi, our economist. We go for a net break. When we return, Lungelele sits with Toba from the Nedbank Eswatini. They speak about their very attractive foreign exchange offering. Don't go anywhere.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Welcome back. You're watching Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for staying with us. You can also watch us on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. Today on the Nedbank segment, we are talking about the Nedbank's foreign exchange services with Toba Gamete. Toba, very good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Let's talk about the role Nedbank plays, in terms of assisting clients to navigate through the foreign exchange market.
Thank you, Lula, and good afternoon to you and your viewers. So our role as a bank from a foreign exchange perspective is to give our clients access to global markets through the facilitation of their payments when they are making cross-border payments in foreign currencies. We also offer hedging solutions for our clients. We understand that markets are volatile, so we offer hedging solutions. And from also a trade perspective, we also have trade products that we offer our clients who are trading with international partners, especially new suppliers that they don't really have a relationship with. And one of those is our letter of credit. I think we'll delve into that as we proceed.
Yeah, I know in this kind of trade there are risks that come with it, but before we get to talking about the risks and how you mitigate them, let's talk about the benefits. Clients are more particular about consumer satisfaction and affordability. Take us through the benefits that come with the service.
All right, so importing is quite key for most industries. You've touched on affordability. We know that some products or goods or raw materials that go into the production that some of our clients are involved in are much cheaper in more industrialized economies or in first world countries, for example, China. So tapping into those markets then allow our clients to sort of produce the finished product at a lesser cost, thus maximizing on their return. You've also touched on customer satisfaction. If you are importing, you probably have a variety of products to choose from. So you're able to bring those into the country, and your clients can then have an option to choose, which then speaks to the customer satisfaction.
Yeah. Okay. And Toba, in this industry, there's, as I mentioned, there are a lot of risks. People get scammed every day. So do you assist clients in getting, I'd say, credible suppliers, internationally?
Yes. So from our perspective as a bank, we do not necessarily get our client suppliers. That lies with the client to explore available avenues to get in touch with suppliers through the internet, whatever platform that they can use. But where we come in as a bank in mitigating that risk is through the solutions that we offer. I've briefly touched on the letter of credit. So basically our clients can tap into that product to make sure that they are dealing with legitimate suppliers and that they won't be scammed.
Okay. So tell us more about the letter of credit. What happens once it has been established?
All right, so the letters of credit are commonly used international trade products to mitigate the risk of the supplier not honoring their obligation after payment, or the buyer not paying for the goods or the service that they have received. So basically, it's a financial document that the bank issues to guarantee that a seller who is going to deliver the product or the service that the buyer is acquiring. So the banks then sort of becomes guarantors to say our client is good for the payment, and in the case of default, the bank is going to is going to pay the supplier. And the supplier's bank on the other side as well confirms that the client or the supplier is indeed in the business of what they say they are in, and they are going to deliver the product. So it sort of becomes
so it's letters from both banks.
From both banks,
Okay.
yes. So it now sort of becomes an agreement between the two banks that both parties will honor their obligations. So in that way, customers can then, or rather buyers, can then sort of have that certainty that they're going to receive the goods that they're importing.
Okay. So what documents does the client need to produce, for your service or for an exchange service? And it could be an individual or a company.
So I think the base would be a proof of the underlying transaction. So it can either be an invoice, a pro forma invoice if you are importing, or it can be an agreement if you are getting a technical service. So the contract that says party A is going to do 1, 2, 3 for you, and then once these conditions are met, you're going to make the payment. So I think as a start, we would require that we get the invoice in the case of imports, or the agreement in the case of services. We can then from there advise the client what additional documents are required, because we are guided by exchange control regulations. So depending on the type or on the nature of the payment, we're then able to say, oh, such a payment requires an import permit in addition to what you've submitted, or it requires central bank approval as well, because we do have payments where the central bank has to approve them prior to them being effected.
Okay, so now contracts are signed, everything is good to go. So what then happens? There's still the exchange rate exposure the client is exposed to that needs to be considered. What then happens?
Yes, so as you've said, you've established now that you have this obligation. You've entered into the letter of credit, and you know that in 3 months, for example, you will need to make a payment in foreign currency. We know that rates are very volatile. You might be signing that contract today and the rate is 17, and in 3 months' time when you need to pay, it's 18.5. That's a 150 difference, and it can make a substantial amount that can probably eat into your profit margins if not hedged. So from a bank perspective, we offer forward exchange contracts, FECs, to our clients to mitigate such a risk, whereby we agree today to pay a fixed amount of foreign currency at a predetermined rate. So we agree on the rate today, we agree on the amount that is going to be paid, and the date at which that payment is going to be made, and that is locked. So no matter where the rate will be trading on the day of payment, the client rests assured that the payment is going to be made at the agreed rate that was done at establishment.
So for clients to be provided with the service, they need to come to the bank months prior. Could it be weeks, months? How much time do they have?
So it's always wise to do it at inception of the contract or that agreement. The moment you know that you have this obligation, I will use just for a flow the case of an LC. The moment that LC is established, it's quite prudent to then lock the rate, because you know that in a certain amount of time you will need to make a payment. Yes. So yeah, I would say as soon as the obligation is formalized and it's known, then it's quite prudent to then hedge it.
Yeah. So what types of goods, can companies or individuals import into the country?
So it's quite a variety, quite a lot. I think as I've mentioned, we have exchange control regulations that guides in terms of the different goods and services that can be imported into the country. In the case of goods, we do have, as I've said, goods that require import permits, for example. That would be your used cars, used machinery, mostly, I'll say anything used, basically. It requires you to have an import permit. You also have pharmaceutical, and you have things like agricultural products. All of those require you to have an import permit. But overall, I think it just depends on what you want to do.
Technological services.
Yes. So technological services as well. Clients can sort of get service providers that are outside the country, get into contracts with them, and as a bank we require that we get those contracts up front as well, because there are some technical services that require us to have central bank approval before we can make payments. So it's quite good to get those in advance so that we can advise accordingly, have the approvals in place in time, so that when payments now need to be made, everything is in order and there are no delays.
Yeah, so it's possibly it's likely that your clients cannot be victims of scams, because if it's just as you just said, Guguti, there are mitigation risks that Nedbank offers to your clients.
Yes. So it is. So all of these products that I've spoken to, the letters of credit, the forward exchange contracts, they sort of try and manage or try and mitigate those risks for our clients. So there is that risk if you don't use these products, and where you you're importing for the first time, for example, you don't know the supplier, you don't have a relationship with them. You will make a payment and you'll find out that they don't honor their side of the deal. That is, they don't send the goods to you. But if you have this solution, this letter of credit, then the banks in between, your bank and the bank of the seller, have an agreement that should you then default, the bank is liable. Should he then default, their bank is liable.
All right. So lastly, before I let you go, how do they get in contact with you, your clients?
So our clients can reach us on our numbers. First, it will be our help desk or our direct line. That is 2378 1999. Okay. Yes, sorry about that.
And also your socials.
and then our social platforms as well.
Right.
Otherwise, from a foreign exchange perspective, our direct line is there. They can reach us at 2378 1249 or 1273. And they can also email us at Nedbank Treasury Eswatini at nedbank.co.za. .sz.
Right. Thank you so much, Toba. You'll join us again later in the program on our last segment for today's financial markets. Right about now, let's take a break. Siyabuya khona manje. Welcome back. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for staying with us. We continue the program. For the first time this year, Eswatini held the Consumer Choice Awards hosted by an organization known as A Peculiar People. About 100 companies were awarded for excellence. The chairperson of the organization, Melusi Zoxlamini, says the awards were a celebration of local creativity and business excellence. Business journalist Nelsiwe Ndlangamandla had a detailed conversation with the chairperson who unpacked everything about the awards, from the selection criteria to ensuring unbiased results.
The Eswatini Consumer Choice Awards, Melusi, a very, very interesting initiative. Tell us more about this initiative. Why did you come up with such an idea?
Okay, so the Eswatini Consumer Choice Awards were curated specifically to celebrate business excellence and innovations where local products are concerned. We basically wanted to come up with ways to influence people to choose local products. But, as we were doing our market research, we realized that, okay, it's all good and well to say, let's buy local products, but we need to be able to differentiate the products that are doing well, the products that have been chosen by the consumer. Because at the end of the day, I think it's very important to understand the power and the economical significance that the consumer holds in terms of all that we talk about. The person who matters the most is the consumer. So we wanted to give the power back to the consumer, for the consumers to be the ones that say, okay, when it comes to food, when it comes to fashion, when it comes to cosmetics, deco, you name it. These are the brands that we believe, speak to who we are as a Maswati. On top of that, siphinde sabuka lokho ukuthi kungenteka kube akhona ama-brands lotfola ukuthi hulumende akawati. So we were also looking at brands that we can prove that they are made in Eswatini. We are not looking at the business people behind the brands. I think I need to be able to emphasize that it is specifically the brands. Any brand, any local product, tangible and intangible, but not the person behind the brand. So we looked at creating a system where we can prove that you're traceable, we can find you. Nangabe uthengisa product kufuneka ukuthi sikhone ukukuthola, whether on social media or nasi ngqongqotha kahulumende sithola ukuthi you are indeed registered. The banks do know about you, because it's all fun and games, for people to know what you do, but the system must be able to know where you are, where you can be found. Nebantfu nabafuna kuthenga kuwe bakhona ukukuthola noma ngabe ude stolo, but bathi bantfu nabafuna kuthenga loyo Vaseline lo makhago, that this is where you can be found online and otherwise. So yeah, that inspired the whole concept of giving the consumers power to nominate and choose products that clearly impress them, that they've interacted with. Yes.
Talk to us about the processes that lead to the final winners. How do you ensure fairness and impartiality in the evaluation process?
2 months ago, we opened up a digital campaign for local consumers to suggest, to nominate businesses and products that they've interacted with. It could be an ice cream, it could be a photographer, anything that you've interacted with that's 100% local. And we were very specific to say, may people please nominate the small businesses instead of the large ones. Of course, we do know we have giants, we have the Rhodes Food Groups, we have the Mbivenis, we have the guys that are already exporting and hiring a lot of people that are 100% local, but we wanted to shine a light on the smaller products. So for about 60 days, because this was strictly digital, so that we are able to maintain the data and trace back the person who nominated eventually when we need to. We got more than 1,300 nominations, and out of the 1,300 nominations, we found that only 113 local products were nominated. So with the 113 products that were nominated, we contacted all of them. Of course, some of them we could not find them, which was one of the criteria based on you ending up being a winner. We had to contact them, we had to find them on social media and ask them to submit a due diligence form. Due diligence form had a couple of questions that you needed to answer in less than 3 minutes. Who you are, when you started the business, when one can find you, how many people you employ. And about half of them were able to submit the due diligence. And the due diligence, once you submit it, you had to now bring your product for adjudication. So we put up a panel of 11 local business people that are in touch with businesses. It's people that sell local products, people that have created a local product, or someone that has actually gone to as far as exporting a local product. One of them have already created local products internally that is all over the world already. So it's people that are business people that had to have interacted with what we are talking about on a personal level. They all agreed, and people brought their products, and the products went through another due diligence process, and the marking was out of 5. So there was 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star. The original concept we had created said we are going to have one winner per category. We had 9 categories, but after the judges sat down and deliberated for over a week or so, they came back with suggestions to say, you know what, the competition was really, really tight. Let us have second place, and let us also reward emerging brands. That's how we got to first place, second place, and an emerging brand. An emerging brand doesn't necessarily have to be a brand that, you know, is third place. No, it's an emerging brand. Now, okay, this product is excellent. Maybe right now they do not have enough money to capacitate and hire more people and produce more, but the future is amazing, you know, according to the judge.
The Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Melusi, is big on quality these days. They want to ensure that consumers get value for their money. They also want to ensure that small and medium enterprises adhere to certain quality standards so that they can be able to export. Are you looking at quality as you are going about these awards?
Within the panel, we have qualified quality managers and food scientists. And one of the main criteria was to make sure that if you're going to get a Symbol of Excellence awards, it means that big shops that trade across the whole Southern African region, you can be found on their shelves. So quality is a big thing. It's a big thing for us. This is not necessarily a popularity contest, but we had to make sure that's why everyone submitted what they do. It could have been liquor, it could have been just water, it could have been just a cake, but everything went through a judging process.
Very, very interesting, Melusi, but I want us to talk about the relevance of the audience, the people who voted for these products. Are these the people who had ample buying power?
Okay, that's a good question, actually. That's why the awards is actually based on data integrity. When you were nominating, we do not know 99% of the people that nominated, but we have been able to trace them and find them. Because when you were nominating, you have to leave your number, you need to leave your location, you have to leave your age, you have to leave your gender, because that also helps the product owners themselves to say, okay, if 35 people less than 20 years old nominated this ice cream from different parts of the country, clearly this ice cream is very popular with the younger generation, you know what I'm saying? So in business, that type of information is very handy, especially to the people that eventually won, to say, okay, these are the people that nominated you, this is where these people are. Obviously, we have found that a huge population of the people that participated are more in the Manzini, Mbabane, Nhlangano region. We are hoping to now, open up for the whole country. We don't have a lot of Northern Ho and Lubombo, but we did find that from the Shiselweni region to Middle Eswatini and to the Hoho, South Hoho, there was a lot of participation there. I guess it's because most of the events that happened where you can actually find these products, like the Luju festivals, the bushfires, the Makoti festivals, and the spaces that actually sell these products. You can find them. There's Gakoko in Babane, Gakoko startups next to Pick and Pay in Babane. Malkans, we have got Swazi Candles, we've got Dallas Spaces, Manzini, we've got Eclairi, selling shops. That also kind of like informed us to say, okay, maybe we do need these types of shops in the East as well. We do need these types of shops in the North as well. Shops that specifically sell local products.
I'm glad that you are touching on representation by regions, but I want us to delve deep and talk about representation of all respondents? For example, representation across all genders and across all ages. How did you ensure that this happens?
Well, this year we did not have any control over who participates and when and how, but we made sure that the system is digital so that it can be traced. But we are speaking to a couple of partners and sponsors. I mean, to be able to market a product in all the 4 regions, you need quite a hefty budget. And we do need the support financially from sponsors to be able to reach to spaces and create a campaign where you can find that before the actual awards, people in all the regions have experienced the product.
This is a very beautiful initiative, and we are hoping that different industries will see the need for putting customers at the forefront and ensuring that their products are of the greatest quality. All the best as you continue with the awards, even for the next coming years.
All right, so that was Nelly speaking to Melusi Dlamini on unpacking the Eswatini Consumer Choice Awards. Now I'm joined by Toba Kamete from Nedbank. He's the Treasury Sales Manager who wants to unpack today's financial markets. A very good afternoon, Toba. Let's start off with currencies this afternoon. I see that the rand is trading higher. Today it's actually doing quite good. Tell us more about it. Why are we seeing this strength?
Right, thanks, Lulu. So the rand is trading higher today against most of the major currencies. There isn't much happening in the US. I think, in South Africa, it's just an improved economic backdrop in South Africa, as well as the weakness in the dollar. You can see that it's trading at 17.855 against the dollar, and 19.7324 against the euro, and 23.3747 against the pound, all green.
Yeah, so what's happening in the US? Yesterday was the presidential debate. Any changes there when you look at the dollar?
Yeah, so we had the presidential debate yesterday in the US, and the analysts basically, after that debate, sort of went with Kamala Harris, and the market is sort of anticipating an improvement in the dollar if Donald Trump wins. So that all of that has sort of contributed to the dollar weakness that we're seeing today.
Okay, so moving on to equities today. Gold, I see, is trading a bit higher today, and Brent crude oil slightly up. Take us through these figures.
All right, so when we look at commodities, gold, as you've said, is trading higher today at $2.5 thousand per ounce. Brent crude is also slightly up. When it comes to gold, it's more of gold being perceived as a safer metal or a safer option to invest in. So with all the risk sentiments that are going on in the market, investors are then looking at putting their funds in gold. Brent crude is trading up, but still quite low from when you look at the levels that we have reached. Drivers there are declining Chinese demand, as well as oversupply in the market.
Okay, so going back to equities, I see that the S&P 500 is doing, companies especially are reporting good numbers, and the FTSE 100 is not doing quite well today. Take us through.
Yeah, so the S&P 500 is up 0.45%, doing quite well. Drivers mostly are mid-year or first half performance numbers that are coming out from most of the companies, but the sentiment is still very risky and still very shaky with what is happening, and investors are sort of also just waiting to see what happens with the inflation number that's going to come out today out of the US. The FTSE is down significantly. The biggest decline or the biggest loser is rental kill initial, which lost about 20% of its shares, of its share value, after reporting a decline in their sales figures for August in one of their biggest markets, which is North America.
All right, so thank you so much, Toba, for today's financial markets update. That was Toba Gamete, who's the Treasury Sales Manager at Nedbank. We've come to the end of our program today. Thank you for tuning in. This was Nedbank Business Watch. If you've just joined us, worry not, you can still watch this episode on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. And for more details on the foreign exchange services provided by Nedbank, do contact their branches or do contact them on their social media pages. We'll see you next week, Wednesday, at exactly 2 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.